January 1889, the eighth night of the blizzard. At 47 below zero, the cold was no longer just weather. It was death. The furious storm swallowed Judith Basin, burying fences and making timber walls groan under the strain. Across the settlement, people desperately fed their own furniture into glowing iron stoves. Children slept huddled in heavy coats. But inside this small ponderosa pine cabin, the scene was strikingly different. 9-year-old Eli Voss slept soundly beneath a single thin wool blanket. Nearly 2 tons of brick and sandstone still quietly radiated heat. Even though the fire had burned out hours ago, Martha Voss calmly set a loaf of bread near the masonry, making use of the steady, comforting warmth it still provided. Across the room, Finnick Voss rested a hand on the warm stone and quietly listened to the howling storm. Suddenly, 3 heavy knocks cut through the wind. A figure stood rooted in the blinding snow. It was Abram Voss, the brother who had once ruthlessly forced Finnick off the family farm. But before that door swung open, the reckoning had already begun 8 months earlier. Spring of 1888 found Voss still living on the farm his father had left to the 2 brothers at the edge of Judith Basin. For years, Finnick had been the man who checked a harness twice before a trip. He dug drainage ditches before the rains arrived. He stored more seed than most farmers considered necessary. When others saw a good season, he thought about the next bad one. That habit had become a problem. The farm had endured 2 weak years. Payments on a hay mower were still hanging over the family. Abram Voss watched every dollar carefully and saw little value in projects that might never be needed. He wanted more cattle, more pasture, more production. Finnick wanted stronger barns, a larger hay shed, and a food cellar dug before winter. The disagreement never turned into a shouting match. That made it harder. One evening, while the sun was dropping behind the cottonwoods, Abram told his younger brother that he spent so much time preparing for disasters that he no longer seemed able to live through ordinary days. A week later, Finnick received a poorer piece of land north of the basin, an aging wagon, and instructions to leave before those preparations consumed resources the farm could not spare. Martha gathered what the family owned. Finnick loaded tools into the wagon. Eli sat quietly beside a sack of seed corn. As the wagon rolled away, the boy kept looking back at his grandfather's house until the cottonwoods swallowed it from view. Finnick never turned around. The new parcel sat well north of the main settlement beside a seasonal creek that ran strong in spring and nearly vanished by late summer. The soil was poor, growing crops there would never be easy. Still, the land offered other things. Ponderosa pines stood along the ridge. Sandstone outcrops broke through the earth in several places. A low rise helped blunt some of the western wind. Before autumn arrived, Finnick built an 18x 20-foot cabin. The front door faced southeast. Fewer windows looked north. Gaps between the logs were sealed with clay, ash, and dried grass fibers. While working, he often remembered 2 winters spent building stone culverts for a railroad crew. An elderly Russian mason on that job had constructed a squat brick stove inside the camp shelter. The fire burned hot for only a few hours. Afterward, the flames died. Yet, the building remained warm nearly all day. The old mason had explained it simply. Fire was not there to heat the room. Fire was there to charge the stone. By September, geese were already moving south. Frost appeared earlier than expected. One evening, Finnick unfolded an old freight receipt and spread it across the table. On the back was a rough sketch he had carried for years. Martha looked from the drawing to the small pile of money they had left. Neither spoke for several seconds. Then Finnick reached for a pencil and began making measurements. The decision to build the brick stove had been made. The plan looked expensive because it was expensive. Finnick did not have enough money to buy new materials, so he searched for them instead. Near an abandoned or testing furnace outside an old mining camp, he found stacks of discarded fire brick. Many were cracked. Some were stained with slag. Others had absorbed years of rain and frost. He tested each one by tapping it with a hammer handle. A clear ring meant the brick was sound. A dull thud sent it into a separate pile. The outer shell would come from reclaimed red brick and local sandstone. Mortar was mixed from heat-resistant clay, screened river sand, and a small amount of lime purchased in town. By his estimate, the finished stove would weigh close to 2 tons. That created another problem. The cabin floor could never support that much weight. Several boards near the center of the room came up. Finnick dug down to firm ground and built an independent stone foundation beneath the future stove, keeping the load away from the wooden floor joists. Each wagon trip brought more brick and stone. Each trip also reduced the family's remaining savings. After paying for lime, a cast iron stove door, and a section of stovepipe, Martha spread their money across the table and counted it twice. The total was enough for flour, salt, and lamp oil until mid-winter. A small iron stove could have been purchased within days. Instead, weeks disappeared into hauling stone. One evening, Eli finished counting bricks on the wagon, leaned against a sack of sand, and fell asleep before supper. Nearby, Martha quietly crossed a bolt of cloth from her shopping list and folded the paper. She never mentioned it. Word of the project spread faster than the stove itself. The first visitor was Caleb Mercer, a neighboring settler who had recently installed a new sheet iron stove. It heated his cabin within minutes, and he was proud of it.